Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Vue in Business event, where we showcase real world applications of Vue.js across various industries. My name is Szymon Lico. I'm an engineering manager at Montreal, and today I have the pleasure of hosting Edoardo Dusi from Storyblok. Storyblok is a headless CMS leader that recently landed over 50 awards in G2's Spring 2025 report. Earlier this year, we featured a Storyblok case study in our State of Vue.js report, and now we are diving even deeper into this success story of Storyblok with Vue and AI as the main theme. Welcome, Eduardo. Could you tell us a bit more about Storyblok and what is your role there?
Hello, Shimon. Thank you for having me. Yes, I am a DevRel at Storyblok, so I'm part of the team that we may call the Developer Relations Community Open Source team. So my role is to educate our community, engage with our community, also contribute to our open source ecosystem. And as you mentioned, uh, we work a lot with Vue.js, both in the product and in the open source ecosystem. So we will talk about this later, probably. Storyblok is a CMS, content management system, at its core. So it's a product that helps you build websites or apps whenever you need to have something that manages your content, your workflows with many editors, especially if you need something visual, because our core main product, let's say, it's a visual editor, lets you like really in a visual way manage the content that populates your website, and with a preview of how the content will be rendered in the website. So traditional CMSs were like monolithic. You had everything in one place, everything, the business logic and the rendering logic in one place. But with Storyblok and the headless CMS paradigm, we just serve your content via API. So you create the building blocks, we call them blocks actually, of your pages. So the components of your pages. And then you take them, combine them, and form your full pages. And all we do is serve the components and the blocks via API. So you get a JSON representing the structure of your page, and then you do what you want to do with the content. Usually, you build a front end and or a mobile application. Could be a website, could be a mobile application, could be something on a TV, a video game, even. So you have this flexibility, this level of flexibility and scalability, of course, because you can build also you can build many front ends on a single backend, on a single space, as we call them. So the containers of the content. So this is the product. Of course, it doesn't stop here because we have many products that helps you manage your team, the way you create content, many rules, many integrations with AI or external services, and so on and so forth. So this is, I think, in a nutshell, what is Storyblok.
Sounds interesting. Could you tell us a bit more about who is using Storyblok? Who are your clients?
Okay, our main clients are big enterprises, and let's look at that as customers having many websites, multiple websites, usually websites that have different purposes. Like imagine a big company that has to deal content with the internal platforms and external services like e-commerces or public-facing websites, blogs, landing pages, multiple campaigns. We even have customers using Storyblok for little pieces of their applications, like using Storyblok just for fetching little piece of content while working on a complex application. So usually, typically the customer we have is a big customer with many different websites, and they use Storyblok as a source for content. And on top of that, they build many different websites and services. So This is the ideal case. But of course, we have also like more small users and customers that maybe use Storyblok for a personal blog or a news site, a personal website, things like that. So we have a full spectrum, let's say.
I'm also happy to tell that we use Storyblok ourselves for our homepage. So yeah, and we are also part of the happy customers for you.
Nice.
Let's maybe also try to dive into your relationship with Vue.js. What kind, which of the products and applications at Storyblok have you actually built with Vue.js?
Okay. Actually, I can say all the products that we have are built with Vue.js, of course, in their front end. So when you log in to Storyblok, all you see is Vue.js. Especially editors, content editors spend the majority of their time in our visual editor, and that product is made with Vue since the very beginning. But also we have other products in this ecosystem, because of course then you need to manage your team. You may need to manage the workflows, the permissions. You maybe have different spaces. You have multiple like containers of content. So you have a dashboard when you manage everything. And we also have plugins that are like connections with external services. Let's say an e-commerce, for example, or an API or a translation service, something like that. So we have these connectors to external services. So everything you see when you log in and you start using the product on the front end, you see everything is built with Vue.js. And since the very beginning, actually, Storyblok started using Vue.js since version 0.11, if I remember correctly. So since the very
Nice.
beginning. Yeah,
Nice.
and the founders were hooked immediately into Vue.js for the simplicity, the speed, the reactivity, and the design in general, the design of the whole framework. And so we built the entire product on top of it, and we are still very satisfied. To the point that we migrated to the last version, migrated everything. It was a big process. We'll talk about that, and we're still using it, and yeah, we're happy about it.
Interesting. And also maybe on the a bit related to that, because I know that Storyblok is a remote first company. You have people spread out across multiple countries. How do you adjust your team, your workflow here?
Of course, being remote, there are, in my opinion, in my experience, there are two types of companies in this space: companies that were forced to be remote after COVID, and companies were born remote. And Storyblok were born remote. Is a company that is remote first since its inception. And this change is crucial because in the first example, you had to adjust your workflows, your policies, and your practices to a remote world. And it's not always easy, you know. And with Storyblok, since we started from the very beginning as a remote first company, everything is remote first. And I mean, everything is uh, thought to be remote friendly. So every process is async. Everyone assumes that every message, every note can't be uh, read or fulfilled by everyone in the company immediately, because we are in different time zones. We actually cover all the time zones. So you cannot have like immediate responses, immediate actions across all the department, across all the teams. So every message, every workflow takes this into consideration. So we try to write down everything. We have processes and rules to write down everything, keep every conversation with notes that everybody can read. we try to have meetings in times uh, like days and times that can suit almost everyone's needs. So in a time during the day that it's okay for everyone, but also every meeting also we take notes, and that notes will be accessed by people that could not attend the meeting. And so, we didn't have to adapt a process, but we created a process to be remote first since the very beginning. And this makes a big difference, because I was in another company before Storyblok, and I saw the difference before and after the remote transition, because we had to adapt many processes. And when I joined Storyblok, I saw that everything was really remote first. And this made a big difference. And so I think we are able to work together even across the world, because everything is meant to be remote first.
Interesting. I think it paints a really good picture that essentially being remote first is something that you have to tackle at the very ground up and start from
Yeah.
that, because otherwise it might be a struggle to adjust your processes. Uh, I'm also quite curious, how many Vue developers do you have now on board at Storyblok?
I cannot exactly count the Vue developers ex- for one reason, especially because uh, we had initially, when we built the product, the core team essentially was made of Vue developers. Like, we built a product starting from the Vue community. I heard stories that the initial team, or some of the initial employees of Storyblok, actually met at Vue conferences or in the Vue community. And so many of the early employees of Storyblok are Vue.js developers. Of course, then the product and the team grew over time, and we needed to hire more developers. And it's not that we always require extensive knowledge of Vue.js in order to hire someone. So maybe we hire someone who has an extensive JavaScript background and knowledge and skills, who is also capable of learning Vue.js. Is this a Vue.js developer? Yeah, today it is, because if you work in Storyblok in the front end, you are a Vue.js developer, but maybe you were not a Vue.js developer before. And also, we have a team for open source packages and ecosystem. And our open source ecosystem, I work in the open source ecosystem. We have SDKs and libraries and packages for many different JavaScript frameworks. So we have to work on many different JavaScript frameworks. Of course, Vue.js and Next are first-class citizen in this ecosystem, but we are also working with different frameworks. So I don't know exactly the number of Vue.js developer, but let's say we have a product team of around 70, 60, 70 people, and the part of that team working on the front end or on the open source ecosystem. So around half of them will work on or touch Vue.js code somehow.
Interesting. That definitely was quite a journey for you. And a bit related to that, and also something you mentioned earlier, you have also undergone a Vue migration, the big and scary migration from Vue 2 to Vue 3. What are the reasons you decided to migrate at the specific time for you?
So the reason primarily was perform so two main reasons: performances and TypeScript. So Vue 3 brought a huge performance gain, right? And so we decided it was worth it, even if migrating to a new major version of a framework with a well-established product is costly. but the performance gains that we had at the time justified this investment, and so we decided to migrate. And also we decided to like switch to TypeScript entirely, and Vue.js, of course, is meant to be TypeScript driven. And so it was not only a migration from Vue 2 to Vue 3, but also from JavaScript to TypeScript. So uh, it was also meant to be this kind of migration. On top of that, there was also another, let's say, another migration, because we also changed the product, like the UI, the UX, many parts of the product we changed in the process. So not only the code base, but also the user experience and everything around it. And so during this migration, we also had to adjust the code base to a new UI, a new UX. So it was the perfect time, because we shipped the Storyblok version 2, and this was built with Vue 3. So it was, I think, a good strategy, smart strategy, because we could rewrite the application basically, instead of trying to port one by one every single component or line of code. We could just start from scratch and create a new product. Of course, you cannot always start from a green field. You need to ensure backward compatibility. You need to migrate something. You need to still probably keep some components with the old API. But if you start from if you start building a new product or thinking of it as a new product, and you, in our case, we could do it because of the Storyblok V2 thing, you could actually improve it, or think of better practices, better patterns, better strategies. And so that's what the team was doing. Actually, one it was a I was not there during the process, but it was led by one person, and it was, I think, a process of 6 to 8 months. I think the whole from like day zero to the final deployment. It was like a 6 7 months process, and it involved rewriting big parts of the application and ensuring backwards compatibility, while also the product was still live, and ensuring that every customer were happy with the live product, of course.
Interesting. So I'm a bit curious about your strategy there. Did you have like both the old one and the new one working together and slowly transitioning parts of the old one, or what was your approach to that?
So the migration, the deployment, and the switch from like let's say version 1 to version 2 was meant in one run. Let's say and at a certain point we decided to do the switch, and so to publish the version 2. So from that point, almost almost every customer was using Storyblok V2, but some customers, we had big customers with big products, that they were relying on features that we built specifically for Vue 2 that we could not migrate at the moment. And so we had to keep them live and running with the previous version. So it's correct to say that we had to support both versions. So we had to support the new one for every new customer and the vast majority of customers that we migrated to the new version. But we also had to keep the previous version live and running for that big customers that we could not migrate because they were like customized for Vue 2. So this was what happened. And also, as I said, yes, we did rewrite big parts of the application, and we could migrate big parts of the application in Vue 3, also changing something in the middle, in the user experience and the UI. But some components still we decided to port them, still using the old options API, which is still supported. So we decided not to fully migrate every component and every lines in the code, but port them, make it work, and then migrate, finishing, let's say, the migration over time. So, when a migration is not uh, 100% complete. So it's an ongoing process. You when you have, of course, when you have a large code base, it's an ongoing process because you port piece by piece everything in your code base, and while you're porting, you're also optimizing. You want to improve the performances, you want to improve the security. So while you're porting something, you just don't port them one by one, but also you add something, you change something, so you improve the code base in the process. So let's also add this on top. And as I mentioned, also you want to port from JavaScript to TypeScript, and in that process you have a new set of priorities. So you want to reduce the number of TypeScript errors as close to zero as possible. So you refactor your code to try to reduce the numbers. In the process, you want to also ensure the stability of your code base. So you include linters or like static analyzers to ensure that your code base is clean, and so you improve it also in the process. So in the end, it's an ongoing process. You would never reach 100%. At some point, we will decide to switch to the next major version of Vue, and so the process will still go on.
Hopefully, it won't be as challenging as the Vue 2 to Vue 3
Who knows?
migration. Yeah, but you spoke a lot about different challenges and your strategies for them. Were there parts that turned out to be easier for you than you expected?
Parts you meant parts that were easier, like
Yeah.
okay, well, of course, the fact that the options API was still supported uh, is something that allowed us to just port some components without having to change their internals. So this is probably something that facilitated a bit on the process and the migration for many Vue users, I would say. Also the fact that with Vue.js, you usually are creating a single page application, right? So the every application in our let's say ecosystem, when you in our dashboard, in a collection of products, including the visual editor, they are single page applications. So in this sense, you have less complexity because you don't have like a huge collection of how do you call them, dependencies. So you don't have like this huge collection of dependencies, and you don't depend on or don't depend too much on the runtime where you deploy it. You just have a single page application. So in that sense, uh, having to deal with Vue.js and with an application built for the client, uh, it's easier than migrating a whole infrastructure and a full stack app. So this is also one of the things that we say to our customers when they want to migrate from a monolithic CMS to a headless one. Because when you have headless and you can just build a piece of the application or migrating a piece of the application, the front end, for example, even a micro front end, if you use this approach, then migrating that single part, because that part have like less scope, it's easier than having to migrate a large monolithic application. So the fact that our app was split between the backend and the front end with Vue also made the process easy. Of course, migrating is never easy. It's never like a pleasure and experience. But if the scope of your app, like the shorter the scope of your app is, and the smaller the scope of your app is, the easier it is for you to migrate it, because of course the business logic is like is particular, is peculiar for this, for your app or your front end. So this also, I think, made a bit easier the process.
Definitely. On the final question in the topic of migration,
Mhm.
and this is a bit open one, what would you recommend to other companies that haven't migrated yet?
If you haven't migrated, first of all, you should migrate, because if you're still on Vue 2, you have probably you have other problems that are bigger than the challenges that you will face during the migration, because you have stability, security problems. For example, you have security concerns. Vue.js is not just a single library; it's also a collection of libraries, and they even Vue core has some dependencies. So when you adopt a framework, you adopt a collection of JavaScript libraries and packages. And so you have to keep in mind that every time they ship a new major, they are also changing their dependency, their ecosystem. And vulnerabilities or like weaknesses in your app, in your stack, can be in every part of your application. So switching to Vue 3 is also switching to a new ecosystem, a new supply chain, new and up-to-date packages, libraries, and so on. So if you still are in an old version of Vue, you are probably exposing yourself to many dangers on the web, because you have a supply chain that is weaker. So you have to migrate keeping in mind that you have security concerns first. And then performances, as I said, Vue 3 brought major improvements to performances and also developer experiences. But uh, the, the performance gains that you have, and even the fact alone that you can fully migrate to TypeScript, I think this justifies the investment on migrating. So I think the question is not whether you should. It's clear that you should migrate. The question is on the strategy that you have to adopt, you have to take in order to migrate. And it here it's not a matter of a strategy for migrating a Vue product. It's in general, when you have to migrate software, you have to write down a process. You have to architect everything, and it's better if you thought about it even when you started the project. For example, the first advice that everyone would told you: write tests. If you have unit tests and end-to-end tests, then when you are starting to migrate, and you will probably migrate element by element, component by component, then if you have tests, they will help you ensuring that your logic is still correct. So you are changing the code, you're changing the code base, but the logic, the business logic, so the solutions that you are shipping still responds to the same requirements that your application has. So this is a general advice, of course, but it's valid. And the fact that we had many unit tests and many end-to-end tests, we are also in the process. We adopted new frameworks for testing. We adopted Playwright. We also ported our end-to-end tests to Playwright, and then we had an extensive test suite, and then we are using vtest for everything. So having those automated tests helps a lot, because then you're sure that, okay, you changed the code, you migrated to a new framework, but you are still answering the initial question. So why I built this component? You should not respond it like yourself. You should have something automatic that tells you, yeah, the component still responds to the same initial requirements. And and so this is my advice, at least.
I think the advice is very accurate, especially with the test suite. And if it's in place, Definitely migration is a lot more comfortable, easy, and you can feel much more confident in what you are doing. If the tests aren't there, it's also an opportunity to maybe actually build that test suite. Because without that, it might be tricky.
Yeah. And also
Um,
thinking of how we migrated. We had the chance to start from scratch. Let's say not exactly from scratch, of course, because we had an existing code base. But the strategy
yeah,
that we adopted was, okay, we will start from scratch, writing a new Vue application, and then gradually we will start moving components from the old app to the new app. And I think this was clever. So maybe this is something that you can adopt to as a strategy. So start with a fresh app and then start moving. Sorry, and then start moving uh, individual components or individual pieces of your code. Then um, you could also try to split your app in in into isolate not isolated but into services. So if you can split your app, as I was saying before, the smaller the scope of what you are migrating, the easiest would be the easier would be the migration. So if you are able to even split your app in different front ends or different apps, then migrating them one by one, probably this will also help, because the migration will be smoother, but also because you could, like, the rollout process could be incremental, because if you are able to split, you could also deploy individual uh, front ends on the individual apps that you migrated while keeping everything else with the previous version. So this could also be a strategy if you can do that. Of course, not every app can be split in different microservices or micro frontends. But if you can do that, then you could also incrementally roll out and incrementally deploy your new version migrated to V3.
definitely. I think we can move on from the migration. It's
Mhm.
definitely an interesting topic, but let's try to maybe talk a bit about business related aspects. So, how do you think Vue helps you achieve your business goals? What are the advantages that you see of using Vue?
I think one of the main advantages that the founders actually of Storyblok found in Vue was the simplicity of the framework and the fact that it allowed them to quickly prototype. And when you're launching a business, it's crucial being able to prototype something quickly, prototype and test it quickly. So this is crucial. And the fact that Vue.js is simple is actually uh, one of the facts that made it popular, I think, um, because the fact that the, so it's simple but it's powerful. So you can do many things, but the developer experience is simple. So it's easy to understand how Vue works, even coming from different frameworks. It's easy to write a component and it's easy to test it, deploy it. So these things means that you are able to ship something new quickly and test it. And if you're launching a product, this is crucial. So I think for every businesses, being able to rapidly prototyping and iterating on ideas, even small changes in the product, is crucial, especially in the initial, phase when you're launching to the market. So yeah, this is probably the biggest advantage that you have with Vue, or that I see in Vue.
Interesting. And do you maybe have any functionalities at Storyblok that you think wouldn't be possible without Vue?
I think in general, it's not a matter of something being possible or impossible, because if you are a good developer, I mean, or just a developer, you know that you can do everything just in plain Java. You could do everything in plain JavaScript, right? There's nothing
obviously.
impossible. But the question is it simple? Is it easy to implement? Uh, with Vue.js, you also have an ecosystem, even with the Vue core alone. But the product that you have with Vue.js, like Pinia for state management, for example, state management is one of the pain points, and every state of surveys will tell you that the developers hate to having to deal with state management because it's complex. And with Pinia, you have something that helps you and makes this easier. Uh, and we are using it in the latest version of Storyblok. Could we do something, do the same thing without Vue and Pinia? For sure, we could build everything from scratch. Would it be possible? Yeah, it would be possible, but it would be extremely challenging, because every time you have to deal with the state management, you will face challenges. So it's better to rely on someone who solved these challenges for you before, and on well established product and communities like Vue.js and Pinia. So if the Vue.js community adopted Pinia, for example, as state management, or Vue router, or plugins, or other packages like that, then you are sure that you have a whole community of highly skilled developers that are testing, using, and reviewing these code bases and these products. And so you can be sure, let's say, that they are stable and tested, and they can be the right solution for you. So if you're building a front-end product like Storyblok, which heavily relies on reactivity, because the interface needs to be constantly refreshed, because in the visual part, you're changing components in your app, you're changing values, you're changing entries, and you want to see the changes in real time. So you want something that is reactive, and you want the state to be preserved. These are challenges, and Vue.js solves these challenges. So it's one of the easiest way to achieve that kind of responsiveness with a web application. um, can you do it with the plain JavaScript or other simpler JavaScript frameworks? Yes, you can, but you have to keep in mind the complexity of the problem you are facing, the complexity that you will face going further in your development, in the development of your application. And if you have a strong product, a strong ecosystem, well established, like Vue.js, you can like focus your efforts on building value for the product, on building business value, instead of solving problems that others solved before you, and probably better than you.
Definitely. Moving on to maybe another topic, and one that I think we cannot really avoid nowadays, and it is AI, and especially in development.
Mhm.
How do you use AI in your day to day development?
So AI is a big topic, is also a bit controversial sometimes. But I can say that Storyblok adopts AI entirely, but as a helper, not as a substitute for our developers. So we use AI tools extensively to help us building better products, better features, but we are not substituting developers with AI coders, with AI tools. To give you an example, um, every pull request that we open on the product, they are documented, commented, reviewed by an AI agent. And that means that the human reviewer that will open that PR later will will be able to have a summary of the changes in that pull request, and also a set of comments that an agent did before. And so this helps the reviewer going through the changes in the PR and better tell if the PR is good or not. In the development process itself, so writing code, we are using AI agents to help us writing code faster and better. So I think this helped a lot in the day-to-day development, but with assistance, not like replacements. We are not replacing, because I think human a human in the process, it's crucial. You need someone uh, that decides, that reviews, that decides when to ship, what to ship, if the code is following the best practices that we have, the policies that we have, if it's secure for the product and for our customers, and then if we could ship it. But AI tools helped a lot. And so we are completely in favor of that. And we actually we were very, say, cautious at the beginning, especially when they started to rise, when many coding agents and tools started to rise. Um, we knew that was going to be um, like a big migration, so that this was going to be something that we needed to adopt, but also that we needed to adopt it uh, with a strategy and a policy. So we wrote down a policy and every developer that we have using AI needs to acknowledge the policy, understand the policy, meaning that they need to understand what an AI using an AI agent means, where the data is going, where the code is going, if there are security concerns, what they can expose, what they cannot expose. In the front end, this is a bit simpler, of course, because you don't have, or you shouldn't have secrets in your front end. But still, you need to be cautious and you need to know what you're doing. So I think if you're a company and you're adopting AI tools, writing down a strategy and a policy adopted by every developer in your team, it's also really, really important and crucial.
Definitely. Also, on the note of AI, I have read your report from May, and it turned out that the AI powered content creation is one of the most requested features that users want more of. How does Storyblok address that in your products?
Of course, we are a content management system again, and so the product is used by companies that need to create content, create and update content. And nowadays, AI is, or better, generative AI is used as a content generator or like a content assistant. And if you're using a content management system, you want something that helps you generating or updating content. And so Storyblok, embedded in the product, has many connections with AI models and tools and APIs to help you generate content. When I say generate content, I mean literally, when you if you want to write down a landing page or an article with our visual editor and you have AI features enabled, you can ask the AI agent to write something for you for you based on your prompt. So this is generating content. uh, but it also means you can edit your content, so you can summarize your content, all the things that you expect an AI model to do. Another important thing is being able to translate your content, especially if you have a large website with many pages, you want to translate them automatically. And again, if you have the AI integration enabled, you can translate the entire page just with one click, when you change language, you can ask the AI agent to translate your page for you. And another big thing I see is the automated generation of alt text for images. So when you upload an image, the alt text can be automatically generated for you using a vision model. So these little things that help you work better with your content are already in the product. And we are working on more things, more integrations, more like use cases for AI. Because you know that the biggest challenge today is not using AI, because using AI is simple. You have an API, right? So as a consumer, using it is simple. The challenging part, if you have a product, is figuring out what to do, how to use it, what to do, because you have thousands of possible use cases. So you have to clearly identify the use case that you want to adopt, that you want to ship, and then the best way to integrate it in your app. So we are working with our customers, the biggest customers, to figure out the best use cases that we can integrate, and then integrate them and ship them. And so we are constantly working on a roadmap to ship new features integrated with AI, or features that can integrate better in this AI world. And we are living now in a world that are shifting from that are shifting the user experience that we have on the web to a AI driven, let's call it, web experience. No, and so even the way the users interact with websites is changing. The way users are finding your content is changing. Uh, even my experience on the web has changed a lot. I find myself using less and less Google to find something, and more a chatbot to find an answer to something. And so it is crucial that your content is retrieved by agents and chatbots and LLMs. So we are working on ensuring that your content will be visible, searchable by these LLMs. So we will be shipping a new product next year called Strata, which is built on a vector database. And this will help agents and chatbots finding your content better. So there are a lot of things that you need to do to understand that the web paradigms are shifting completely. So you can already adopt things to work with your content, but there are tons of use cases that still can be discovered. And so you need to understand your users, understand your product, and decide what are the best things that you should ship.
Definitely. I'm quite excited for the new features you will bring, and happy to hear that there is this new feature coming next year. So, before we finish for today, for our viewers, if they would like to know more about you, where could they find you?
Well, they can find me on LinkedIn. Probably this is the best place. So just search for my name on LinkedIn. I'm also on Mastodon. So if you search my name or Edoardo Dusi, my nickname on Mastodon, you will find me. I'm on GitHub, and in general, the Storyblok organization, you can find it on GitHub and on LinkedIn as well. And we also have a Discord server. So if you are a Discord user and you are a Storyblok user, or you want to be a Storyblok user, our Discord server is probably the best place to contact me or the other DevRels and DX engineers in Storyblok.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Eduardo, and it was very much a joy to have you here today.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Thank you. So, thanks for your attention, everyone, and see you in the next episode of Vue in Business.